Good afternoon and welcome to the National Museum of Women in the Arts, the only major museum of its kind in the world. We're delighted to share our mission with you this afternoon by celebrating people who champion women and girls, like the inspiring and versatile Matthew Cherry and the remarkable Hair Love team. The book itself is an elegant work of fiction, eloquent, almost like a haiku. But the wider story of Hair Love shows what can happen when women like Karen Tolliver, Executive VP of Creative for Sony Pictures Animation, are in a position to say yes and push stories by gifted writers and directors like Matthew Cherry. And sometimes, as we saw just a little while ago, when great people come together, Oscars happen. Which was such a beautiful moment. Young girls seeing themselves in books and on the big screen happened. And you know what else happened? More women got paid. And this project has employed quite a few talented and resourceful women, two of whom are here with us today. Illustrator Vashti Harrison, who also is an author and a filmmaker, and Cherry's manager, Monica A. Young. We also are glad to have Adjoa Asamoah here with us this afternoon, and she will tell us more about the Crown Act, upcoming legislation which Cherry will also address as part of his remarks. Today's program is part of the National Museum of Women in the Arts, Women, Arts, and Social Change programming, our public program initiative that highlights the power of women and the arts as catalysts. This and all our public programs are made possible with leadership support from Denise Littlefield-Sobel, the Dore Davis Family Fund, the Susan and Jim Swartz Public Programs Fund. And additional funding is provided by the Bernstein Family Foundation and the Ravada Foundation of the Logan family, both located here in the District of Columbia. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome our community and strategic partners who have collaborated with us to bring Hair Love to the museum today. That includes the Downtown DC Bid. Neil Albert, if you're here, thank you very much. The District of Fashion, Headrush Entertainment, Nubian Human, and VIP Socio. Today's conversation will be moderated by the museum's dynamic Director of Public Programs, Milani N. Douglas. Again, thank you for joining us, and I turn the podium over to Milani.
Hey, everybody. Hello. All right. Yes. Okay. So how many people are here for the first time? Oh, yay. Okay. All right. How many people have been here before? Good. How many people have attended a Fresh Talk? And where are my members? All right, now we need to do something about this number, and we're going to come back to Fresh Talk. So if you've been here before, make sure that you tag up or know someone who hasn't. Show them the lay of the land. They may have questions. Of course, we're here to answer them as well, but we heavily rely on each other in community. This is a great event. We want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to enjoy it. So take out your cell phones. You might want to take notes, but the thing you really want to do is turn it off, right? We're going to do that part. And then if there's any other question that you have, we'll have a chance for a Q&A at the end. And we'll also have book signing afterwards. So we're going to also welcome, are you ready? Come up. We have from DC Film. So if you could come up and please tell us more about what you are doing.
Sure.
There you go, Mr. Nutt.
Oops. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Herbert Niles, and I'm the Associate Director of the Film Division at the DC Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. On behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Director of our agency, Angie M. Gates, I want to welcome all of you, and I want to welcome Matthew and Vashti and the Hair Love team for bringing this very important, heartfelt, and beautifully crafted short film. It touches me personally as someone with natural, unconventional hair that was told by family members and others, you have bad hair. I know we've all heard grandmothers talk about good hair and bad hair, right? Am I right? Right? And to have a story that embraces a family story, a family about a father that's present, a mother and a daughter and a family that's full of love, addressing an issue that I think is very under the rug in our community, but very important. Because there's that famous phrase, you can't love others until you love yourself. And I think we've got to love ourselves, got to love our hair, we got to love everything about ourselves. And this film is so powerful in that way. And I just really want to thank you guys for that. And the last thing I want to say before I let the screening begin is it's very important to support creative content created by people of color. And in addition to supporting this short film in any way we can, it's incredibly important to support the companion book. And that's why we're all here. Tell your friends to buy the book. Go to your elementary schools and your junior high schools and tell them to put that book in the library. Because I personally, with young children, have to go to my library and say, put books in this library where my children can see children like themselves. And it's a battle to do that. And so the more stories like this are told and the more it's mainstreamed, I think one of the greatest things about the Academy Award is that people outside of our community get, learn more about this issue. So I'll just wrap it up before I get too carried away because it's a very emotional issue for me, as you can tell. But thank you so much for what you've created. It is incredibly important. And our job is to help amplify it. Buy the book. Tell your friends to buy the book. Tell your school systems to buy the book for their libraries because it's incredibly important. Thank you.
Matthew, Vashti, Monica, please come on up. So beautiful, yes. Wow, right?
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful reception for a beautiful project. There's so much to love about this project. And what I've come to love the most in researching it is, one, just the stories behind the project. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, and if we can turn the house lights up a little bit so we can see people. There we go.
There we go.
We like to see each other around here. But I love the story of the people behind it. And one commonality between the journeys is that it seems like you all had these interesting spaces in your career where you had to like pivot. You know, I think sometimes to get here wasn't a straight line, I don't think for anybody on the stage. So if you all could talk about those moments where you pivoted and had to start or restart.
Okay. Who do you want to go first?
Vashti, I'd love to hear if you want to go.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name's Vashti Harrison. I am now an author and an illustrator, but I started my career as a fine artist. I made experimental films and videos. But I think the major pivot came for me when I was in film school. I went to this art school called Cal Arts, and it's really famous for being the Disney School of Animation. I wasn't there to study animation, I was there to study experimental film, so I was off with the weird kids, literally in the basement, making 16 millimeter films. And I just took a drawing class for what I thought would be fun. Drawing was something I did a lot as a child, but I stopped when I started making movies. And I got to this class and I was like, oh, this is not fun. This is crazy. I used to be really good at this and now I'm not good. So I was kind of like overwhelmed with this idea that, oh, if it was so clear to me, like if you do not practice at something, you will not be good. So I made it a goal of mine, just part of my daily practice, to draw every day since then. Meanwhile, I finished film school. I worked briefly in the industry a little bit as a production coordinator. I worked on an animated television series as a production coordinator. But I was going home every night. I was supposed to go work on my movies. Every night I was going home and drawing. So when I was faced with, a choice to make, I got laid off from the job in TV. I really wanted to make, creativity my main career. And so I pivoted and tried to become a children's book illustrator. Fortunately, it worked out really quickly for me. I got my first gig illustrating a book. And then shortly after that, I met my agent and sold the deal for my books, Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History, and that whole collection. So fortunately, I get to make beautiful content for children now.
So for me, I've had a couple of transitions, but not really. So I played sports all my life. Started playing sports ever since I was 5 years old. Started with baseball and football. Played 3 sports in high school: football, baseball, and basketball. But I was always interested in entertainment and the arts. I did a lot of creative writing when I was in grade school. I was a part of the audiovisual club when I was in high school, despite being an athlete. And when I went to the University of Akron on a football scholarship, I majored in radio TV broadcast. So I always knew whenever I got done playing sports that I would get into entertainment. I just didn't know exactly what. And so played 3 years in the NFL, played up the road at Baltimore 1 year. I also played with Carolina, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati. Retired after 3 seasons in 2006. And luckily, when I was playing, I'd met somebody who told me about this program called Streetlights, which was this production assistant trainee program where they basically kind of teach you the ins and outs of being on set and kind of the set etiquette and everything. And that was kind of my in into the industry. And so retired from playing the NFL to literally become a production assistant. Definitely a humbling experience if you want talking about a transition. But it was great. I loved it. There was oftentimes I would say to myself when I'd be on these sets, like, oh my God, like you're paying me to do this? Like one of the shows that I worked on early was Girlfriends with Tracy Ellis Ross and Mara Brock-Akil as a set production assistant. And then 2 weeks ago, my episode of Blackish that I directed aired with Tracy Ellis Ross, starring in it. So definitely a full circle moment. So that was the first transition. So, long story short, just worked my way up, did a lot of music videos starting off. People like, I'm trying to think, Kindred and Family Soul, did a video for Jasmine Sullivan. Most recently, Chloe and Haley did a video for Michelle Williams, Beyonce, and Kelly Rowland for a song called Say Yes. But then just eventually was just doing a little bit more and more. Did live action short films, did a couple independent feature films, my second of which was called Nine Rides. That was shot on 2 iPhones for $15,000. And then that ironically was the movie that got me an agent and, kind of helped move the career forward the most. And, but back in 2016, around the same time I was doing that movie, I came across this really incredible image of a Black father with his daughter kind of sitting in his lap. She was looking up at him with so much love. This image was like in CG, which is kind of the current form of animated feature films. And this was kind of before the wave of the Moanas, the Into the Spider-Verse to Coco. I'd never seen characters that looked like this with this short curly hair, Afro puffs. And I just thought the image was amazing. And the idea just kind of hit me like a light bulb, like, oh, dad doing a daughter's hair. Like that would be a really cool story to do in animation. And my next transition, because I had never done animation before. And so I'll get into that long journey of how we all met and the rest of the program later on. But the idea was born from there. Luckily met Vashti really early in that process. And Monica, me and her had already been working. And we made a short film that won an Oscar a couple weeks ago. Great.
My story may be a little bit longer because I'm a little bit older than them. So I'll give you the last 20 years.
Okay, we'll take the last 2 decades,
2 decades, a little bit more. I was working at a record label called Hidden Beach Recordings.
Yeah.
Home of Jill Scott, Kindred, Mike Phillips, and more. So I was over the grassroots marketing there, and always had a love of music, particularly soul music and jazz and acid jazz and, you know, underground music. And that's sort of how I met Matthew a little bit after that. He was working on a music video with Kindred. I think the second video that he was filming. And I'm from LA, I'm a native. So I've always had a love of music, but in grade school, a lot of my friends, their parents were in film and television. So I'd say about 2002, 2003, I started thinking a lot about it. Like it became of interest, a stronger interest in me, but I didn't know what would be the entry way into that. Met Matthew, was very attracted to his work ethic, and was very attracted to his storytelling ability, but not thinking he was a filmmaker. Just, you know, but then I started realizing that a lot of still working in music, he was a music video director, and at that time I was more like a whip cracker of him. I wasn't necessarily representing him, but taking interest, and I love that his work, and there were a couple other music video directors. Their sensibilities weren't blingy, but they were really strong stories. That I was interested in stories of Black people and Black families like Kindred. And so at that time, I left the label and I started managing music artists and producers. And then I ended up managing Matthew, and we sort of segued into film together. And when you're working on independent films, what you do, you find yourself doing everything. So not only was I managing, I found myself producing all of his work, because what you end up doing is have to roll up your sleeves and get dirty and do every job. So I was craft service, I was catering, I was, I carried everything. You end up doing everything, and then it felt like film school for me. I started learning and learning through others who had more experience, even going back to high school and calling some of those friends who were, were in film. And so we began to grow together. And I've produced all of his projects with him. So not only do I manage him, but we're producing partners as well. So
I was listening to an interview with Bruce Smith, and what I love that he said is about how you come up together, you grow together, and the importance of taking people with you, because you don't want your voice to be the only voice when you get into the room. So we got into it a little bit, but you all met, during an aesthetically beautiful time for Black music, just the videos that were coming out and the message. But tell us more about how you all came up together.
In terms of Hair Lab?
Well, yeah. You all came. You worked on the set together. How did you meet Vashti? Like, how did you all meet?
Okay, yeah, I'll tell that story. So, crazy enough, a lot of this has just literally been timing. Like, if one thing was different, I don't know if this project would have gotten done, let alone the level that it got done. It was just all like incredible timing. So, had the idea back in 2016, sent out a tweet about it and everything. I actually said it was, I thought I had an Oscar-worthy idea, some beauty artists get at me, but they didn't get at me. And so the idea kind of faded away, and I kind of forgot about it, and we were working on other stuff. And then in the summer of 2017, I just kept coming across these viral videos of Black fathers doing their daughter's hair. And it just was like, okay, God, if ever there was a sign, clearly this is it. And so I've done a couple of Kickstarter campaigns before. Kickstarter is a platform where you can try to raise money for your projects online. In return, for the amount of money that you donate, you get gifts in return. And so I was successful with 2 other projects, but both kind of small level, raising like about $15,000. I knew with animation, like we're gonna have to raise a lot more just because animation is so much more expensive. You need so many more people to work on it. And so I knew that outside of trying to build a great team, so obviously Monica was on board. Luckily, through social media, I networked with Peter Ramsey, who was at the time directing Into the Spider-Verse, who I don't think anybody really knew what that was going to be yet either, but that won an Oscar as well. And then Frank Abney, who's this great animator at Pixar. So it felt really important to surround it with a great team of people that were experts in their field, but also Black people that were experts in that field. And then I came across this really incredible image that Vashti drew of one of my filmmaker friends. And I had never seen, Black hair look like this, like the features. It was just incredible. And then I remember going on her Instagram, I was like, oh my God, like the whole thing is just, this is incredible, all kinds of images, images of celebrities, but also images of young kids, images of, kind of reimagining of, the Goldilocks and all kind of incredible images. But the main constant was just incredible hair, braids, twists, cornrows, everything. It was just, I'd never seen it drawn like that. And I just kind of blindly reached out to Vashti. I was on IG and was kind of like, sorry to blindly hit you up.
I think you did it on Twitter first, and I didn't
Right,
know
right.
I didn't know how to use Twitter.
Right. Right. Well, long story short, reached out, told her the idea, about a dad doing a daughter's hair. Luckily she got it. She was
I got it because I knew who you were because I don't think we actually met, but I had seen your film at Black Star Film Festival,
Yeah,
and I had
totally.
shown a film there. Black Star is such a great festival,
Yeah.
like one of the few where they show experimental films as
Yeah.
well as narrative. And Nigella, the filmmaker that we knew in common, that I drew the picture of, she and I went to
Yeah.
film school together. So it kind of all worked out very kind of cosmically
Yeah.
that all these connections would have
Yeah.
happened.
And this was like 6 months before your first book came out.
Yeah.
Because had it been after, I don't know if it would have worked out
It
timing-wise.
was while I was still writing it, and so it was like, I was in this period of like, this may all go away really soon, so I'm just gonna say yes to all this. That all came to a head last year, and I am exhausted.
Well, yeah, but long story short, we there's mutual interest. She designed these incredible characters for us for the Kickstarter campaign. I think those characters, more than anything, helped kind of show people what we wanted to do. The characters were already there. Zuri looked amazing. She had her nice natural curls. The father, he looked a little different than he does in the short film, but that same energy. And we launched this campaign, and what ended up happening was the initial goal we set was for $75,000. And it was just like literally a whirlwind. Like, I think we hit that goal in the first 5 days, which is unreal.
That's amazing.
And the goal was kind of set a little lower because I always knew we'd need probably a couple 100,000, but I didn't feel confident asking for that amount because with Kickstarter, if you don't raise your amount, then you don't get anything, but you can always raise more. And so the idea was like, let me raise a number high enough where people know that, if we
Sometimes
raise.
people don't donate if
Right.
they think it's too much, if
Right.
they're asking for too much. So.
Right. Yeah, so there was just amazing love around it. We ended up ending the campaign in 30 days. We raised almost $300,000, 280. Like I said, there's been love around this project from the beginning. My manager, Monica, had this incredible idea before we launched the Kickstarter campaign. She was like, these characters that Vashti drew are amazing. Like, this would make a great picture book. We should just offer it on our Kickstarter campaign as a gift. Like, not really knowing what we're going to do, if it's going to be an ebook or me drawing some stick figures, didn't know what.
Figure it out. We always figure it out. Yeah.
Right. And to the power of attraction, what ended up happening is because we offered this children's picture book, literally within the first week of the campaign, an editor, Namrata Tripathi, who was working at Penguin Random House at the time, she saw the campaign, she emailed us, and basically said that she loved the characters, she loved the story, and that she basically asked if we'd be interested in doing a book deal with them. And so we ended up getting a book deal in the middle of our Kickstarter campaign. So it was just crazy energy around us from the front. Namrata had actually tried to get Vashti's book series initially, so she was familiar with her work as well. And that's
one of the main reasons I came on to illustrate the book
Right.
was because Namrata, I knew she was such an incredible editor, and the art director Jasmine. So those are two other women that worked,
Yeah.
helped make this project come
Yeah.
together in such a powerful way. And
Yeah.
without them, the color, the paper, there's so many choices that you have to put into making an object, a book, and they worked so
Yeah.
hard on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll end that story there because there's about 3 other ones. We can get
But what
into later.
I love the most about that, because sometimes institutions, we wait until everything is in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before we launch, and also we just wait to tell the story. But the Kickstarter, it seems like getting your audience involved
Yeah.
early, like you
Yeah.
engaged early.
Yeah.
Like, how did that change the trajectory of the project?
It was everything. I mean, for me, I've never been a fan of sitting back and waiting for other people to do what we can do for ourselves, To me, yeah. No, because what ends up happening oftentimes is other people's timing sometimes doesn't align with yours. You may have more of a sense of urgency. They may be kind of hesitant, and that can really mess up the energy around the project. And so the great thing with Kickstarter is like, not only are you able to raise money, but it also is kind of marketing your project. And what ends up happening if you do something that actually hits and goes viral, it's just this like, it was just literally like a magical thing. Like, I remember we had a list of all the different press outlets that we wanted to reach out to get the word out about the project. Outlets like CNN, Roland Martin, Al Sharpton, et cetera, all the local news outlets. And within the first week, they all reached out to us themselves. Like we didn't even get a chance to reach out to them. They had heard about it themselves. And so, like I said, there's been magic around this project since the very beginning. I think a lot of it comes because we had really pure intentions with it. We even said in the Kickstarter campaign that our goal was to try to help create a project that young people could see themselves in. Animation and obviously children's books are some of the first forms of imagery that young people typically end up seeing themselves in. Cartoons, like Karen said in the speech during the Oscars, that's the first form of filmmaking that young people see themselves in. When you don't see characters that have your same skin tone, that don't have the same type of hair as you, it can really do a number on your self-confidence. And, the Eurocentric standards of beauty are very prevalent in mainstream media. And, we just wanted to do something that young kids could see themselves in and be like, look, Mom, that's me. And just feel prideful in their hair, regardless how you wear it, straight, curly, no hair, like you saw in the short film, it's all beautiful. And we just want people to be able to be themselves. So,
So in looking at the project, where do you see yourself the most? Like, where's that one part that reflects maybe something that happened in your lifetime? And for me, I've been natural 26 years. And so to see it on the screen like this was just like an amazing moment, to be able to raise a child with these kind of resources. But where have you all seen yourselves in the project or along your journey to making it?
I think for me, I say from beginning to end, tone is probably the thing where I see myself. It's not over the top, it's not slapsticky, it's not like, it's honest, it's real, it's like our daily life, and I think that I would just say overall tone for me. There's humor, there's emotion. These are the things we go through daily. So, yeah.
I would say for me, going online, trying to figure out how to do something. and then the tutorials always make it seem so easy, like, oh, voila. And then it's like, I'm at the first step still. Like, I got to rewind this. Definitely within that. And, also just, I think, in the father character, being a young man with locks, that's a journey in and of itself. I think initially in the Kickstarter, the dad looked a little older. Karen Tolliver, who was our incredible producer and fellow Oscar winner, she had a great idea that we should make him younger. Let's give him some tattoos. Let's get him into basketball shorts. He needs to look like how the young fathers look today, because the older fathers, those aren't the people that are typically kind of getting those same looks when they cross the street, same looks when they're getting in the elevator necessarily. And we just really wanted to represent for, the young millennial family. The gender norms of kind of back in the day aren't really the same. And, rent is expensive everywhere. And oftentimes now both parents have to work. And if mom got to go to work early or go out of town, and picture day is coming up, what you gonna do, Dad? You got to step up, right? And, it's just all about just representing a young man who has this love for his family and trying to normalize that and show that, we're more than our appearance, like the gentleman DeAndre Arnold that we brought with us to the Oscars. He has locks. He's a great kid. He wants to be a veterinarian, but his school judged him based off of how he looks. And we just wanted to get ahead of that and just showcase that, we're normal and our hair doesn't deserve to be policed and we should be allowed to be who we are.
I definitely tried to infuse a bit of myself into the aesthetic for Zuri and her room and the things that she's doing, her relationship with her cat. When I was growing up, this is just, can't blame kids, but I got judged for a lot of different things, for like, you're not black enough, you're not this enough. And I just really wanted to make a little girl who's just 100% herself. She's not, I always felt like I needed to be like sassier or bolder or funny. And in these moments, like Zuri is at rest. She's playing in her room. She draws pictures. I really wanted these like warm, whimsical colors to provide this reflection of innocence on her. There were moments in my career when I was trying to fake it till I made it. I was working as a graphic designer, and I had to do all these T-shirts, and I kept getting told that my designs were too feminine. They're, make it more masculine. And I vowed that I would never force myself to like take that whimsicalness away from, because I guess it's not often associated with blackness, with black innocence and childhood. So I wanted to like make this world feel so sweet and so filled with love and wholesomeness that it gets just reflected on every page.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting that when you speak of having that kind of freedom, even today we still have to have laws being put in place. I mean, when we talk about, we have Adwoa Osama, if you could come up and join us to talk about the Crown Act, we still have to have people that are legislating and pushing for us to have those whimsical free spaces unregulated.
Yeah.
And so if you could give us some information about the Crown Act, because you mentioned it in your speech, so give us some background on it and maybe also a call to action.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me, and thank you. I am eternally grateful for you lifting the Crown Act movement on the biggest stage perhaps ever. The Crown Act stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair to include protective styles. To your point, the policing of black hair, we are sending black children home because their hair is being deemed a distraction in schools, or it's against dress codes. And we really cannot have that. So this movement started, there are sort of two different ways that I can go about this. But first I need to acknowledge Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. It was during her tenure as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus when one of the armed forces proposed bans on certain hairstyles that disproportionately impacted black women. They sent that letter, all the black women of the CBC sent that letter and signed it in perhaps April. And by August, they had rescinded and said, yes, we realize that there's a disparate impact on black women. So that's sort of the initial inspiration for the work. But then we were at the Essence Festival, which is, where black women gather and talk about all sorts of things. And there was a powerful room full of sisters, including my sisters, A.C. Eggleston Bracey and Kelly Richardson Lawson and Orlena Nwankwa Blanchard. And I'm an activist. Most of my work focuses on racial equity, at times the intersection of racial equity as well as gender equity. And because of the work I do in the political space as an impact strategist and as a political strategist, they tapped me and said, we want you to lead the legislative advocacy efforts for this movement. Considering the work I'd done around the nation, particularly as it relates to seat at the table, getting more black people in general elected, but as well as black women specifically, I started to tap into those relationships. And so there's a Crown Coalition that was formed, co-founded by Dove and the National Urban League and Western Center on Law and Poverty, as well as Color of Change. And then I started calling my friends who were the leaders of other organizations. And so I called my own, Madam President of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I called my girlfriends who are AKAs, and one thing led to another, and now we have this huge, powerful, influential coalition, including the National Black Caucus of State Legislators and the African American Mayors Association and Legal Defense Fund and NAACP and National Action Network, and we just grew this coalition who said that they want to stand with us and fight against hair discrimination. And so now we have 3 states where the law has not only been passed but enacted. The credit goes to, it was first introduced in California, first passed in New York, and then on the 1-year anniversary of that awful display of anti-Blackness, where I think most people probably saw that video that went viral with Andrew Johnson in New Jersey. 1 year later, thanks to the work of the Crown Coalition and the sisters who I named that I work with tirelessly on this issue, the governor signed that bill. So we now have 3 states where it is illegal to discriminate based on hair. And so the Crown Act, again, it amends the definition of race to include traits that are historically associated with race, to include hair texture and styles. And so we have a federal bill that's been introduced. Congressman Cedric Richmond is the lead of that bill in the House. The co-leads include, of course, Congresswomen Marcia Fudge and Barbara Lee, who took action previously as well, but also Ayanna Pressley. And then my good friend, I called Senator Cory Booker, who's a good friend of mine, and he is leading the efforts in the Senate. So we are now at 25 states. 23 states have either pre-filed the bill, or explicitly stated the intent to file, to include, I'd been working with Texas even before the DeAndre Arnold case came about with Representative Retta Bowers. And so we just did a press conference to announce that during the next legislative session, Texas will also be introducing the Crown Act. So we are making waves nationwide.
That's awesome.
Thanks to the support of so many people. If you have not signed the petition, please go to thecrownact.com, sign the petition, call your legislators at both the state level, so the members in your respective state legislatures, as well as your members of Congress, because we want to see this, to your point, and again, thank you so much. I'm eternally grateful, and I'm not sure that I can quite convey that in this room, but so grateful for you just standing on stage during your moment. That was your time to shine. And you lifted the Crown Act. And so for all of the little Black girls and boys who are in schools being, targeted and sent home, thank you for your work and to actually elevate the issue of Black hair. So the credit goes to you in that regard.
It is very important that we tell these stories together, because we want to understand that art is informed by life, and life is transformed by art.
Yes.
And so when we have these moments where they're reflecting each other so clearly, it's a beautiful time to talk about it together, and also to understand that as you told your story and you all are speaking about it, none of this happens alone. Like, it takes so many people to do so many things. So when the call to action, as far as signing the petition, this is a serious call to action. This is a way that everybody can be involved. And as a part of the Women, Art, and Social Change program, we like to see art inspire impact and inspire action. So put that out for us to be a part of that discussion and to motivate you all to sign it as well if you have not. This is a beautiful conversation. We're going to start to take some questions, but I want to just thank you all so much for everybody's contribution to it. Does anybody have a question that we can start with? Okay, I see the first hand back here. Yes. Somebody's going to bring you a microphone.
I'm pretty loud, but
Okay.
very loud. But it's not so much a question. I'm here to say thank you over and over again. I am a Black American woman born and raised in the South, the Bible Belt. I'm a 70s baby, and I've been natural since 2005. And I literally drove back here from a funeral to come to this. Oh, wow. And I want to say, just yesterday, as we're getting ready to get dressed to go to the funeral, to hear a cousin tell her daughter, "Oh, your ends are so nappy. We got to go fix this before we go to the funeral." It was just so heart-wrenching. And to come to this, to see all this love in the room, to see all the natural hair in the room. And I want to say thank you to you guys, because it's not just the kids, it's also in the workplace.
Absolutely.
I'm a fashion designer, I'm an activist, and I'm a feminist. And I used to model for many years. And when I decided to go natural in 2005, it was a huge issue with my agency, and I said, no, I'm putting my foot down. And just a few years ago, to have to talk to your agent when they're sending you on a casting and have to ask them, okay, how do I have to go with, do I blow my hair out? How do I need to go with my hair? And having you guys up here and setting the platform, I just want to say thank you so much, because it's not just our children, it's still in our communities. It's still an issue when we go on job interviews or when we go on castings to have to constantly ask, okay, I'm going on this casting, how do I have to have my hair? Do they understand that I'm natural? So if they want it a certain way. And this is absolutely fantastic, and I just want to say thank you, and thank you again.
I should note that the bill actually covers both educational settings and education-related activities as well as the workplace. I mentioned the schools because that's where I come from. I come from educational equity, and that's my dissertation topic. So I'm extremely passionate about ensuring that our babies are not suspended and on the receiving end of exclusionary discipline, but it does in fact cover both workplaces as well as schools.
Yep.
And the federal bill also includes protections in public accommodations as well.
Okay, there was a question right in front of you, and then I'll come down. There's actually one right there, and one, and you can pull right in front of you too.
Hi, my name is Layla Nielsen. I'm here with my beautiful natural hair daughter. I just wanted to shout her out. I have a question, two parts. One, what went into the scene, the fight scene with the hair? That was like the best scene for me. And second, what's next? Now that this is a movement that is gotten recognized by the Oscars, etc. What is the next step? Is there a next step to take things to the next level and really take this so that kids, workplace, all of that, and with the coalition, but is the movie itself and the book, is there a step two?
You want to talk about the hair fight?
For us, the hair fight, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'll tell you what it meant for us. It's how many of us see our hair. We fight it. But when Stephen decides to stop and listen to his daughter and even listen to his wife and treat the hair with love and care and tenderness, that's when he gets it right. So that's sort of the messaging with the hair fight.
Yeah, and then in terms of next steps, it's been a whirlwind. We got the book out. It just entered back on the New York Times bestseller charts. Thank you, guys. The short is doing crazy numbers as well. We're just trying to figure out what that next step is for that. But more than anything, the thing I'm personally most passionate about is just getting the word out about this Crown Act. I think there's a real chance right now to make this a law in all 50 states, to make this world better for all of us that choose to wear our hair however we choose. Right. And to me, that's bigger than any art and ambition. I'm glad the short film allowed us the platform to elevate that topic. And, to me, it's just important. Stories like DeAndre's and Andrew's and so many kids and also adults who, can't even go to work wearing certain hairstyles. You know what I mean? You have to kind of choose your profession and things like that. It's just crazy. That we even have to make these choices. And I think I would just love to live in a world where those conversations could cease to happen.
And in terms of the Crown Coalition itself, the goal is obviously to pass the bill in all states as well as the federal level. But additionally, to sort of shift just not policy, but also the culture. So we have to have these conversations where we're understanding what hair discrimination is. Yep. And to your point about shouting out your little girl, making sure that she recognizes that her hair is beautiful, whether she decides to rock it, with braids, twists, locks, blow it out like mine is today, or in Senegalese twist like it'll probably be on Friday, reserving the right for us to rock our crowns however we see fit. So we are introducing the bill in a number of different states. Virginia just passed it in both chambers, but they swap. But Maryland, Pennsylvania, I'm working with members in Tennessee and in Florida and in Georgia. And so it's a movement. And so, to continue to not just, make sure that the rights of us, our abilities to wear our hair however we see fit are protected, but also to shift the culture around it. And that's what I think your work does and why it's so critically important, is to shift both policy and culture.
Mm-hmm. There's a question right in front. Yes. So, yes, you. Yeah,
So first I want to thank you too, like everyone else. And you all are so beautiful, just looking at you and seeing you all stand up, sitting up there, just absolutely beautiful. I have been in contact with Shea Alpha Books in Dakar, Senegal, which is where I spend a lot of time with my husband is Senegalese. They are carrying the book. They began carrying the book this week. So you can now purchase it in Dakar, Senegal. One of the things is that it's extremely important that you think there's an issue here with hair. There's a serious issue in Africa with hair. And I want to know if there are any plans to get the books translated, one in French, Portuguese, because those are the primary languages, but as well as maybe Tree, Wolof, Jola, so that the children there can read it and read it in their own languages. There's a need for it. The children want to see it, but if they can't understand the language in the book, it doesn't really help them in the way that it does. So is there any chance you'll see them translated?
Yeah, so it's actually available in French now, which is great. It was just announced literally today that it's going to be available in Portuguese as well.
And also, for the other languages, it really requires a sub-publisher to make that happen in the country. So if we can find one, or if anyone knows of one, let us know.
And how can you obtain I did a book drive last year for Guinea-Bissau and Senegal, which is French and Portuguese. So how can I get the French so that I can get another campaign going to get the books over there, French and Portuguese?
Yeah, so the French version is through Scholastic Books. We're also a part of the Scholastic Book Fair this year, right on the cover, which is crazy. And so Scholastic is putting out the French version. We also have a UK version, which is put out by Puffin Books. And then the Portuguese version is through, what's the name of the company?
Gallant?
I didn't look it up.
Yeah, we have to look.
Unfortunately, the way it works when other publishers around the world need to feel like there's enough of a market for that book for them to buy the rights to it. So it's not up to us. Usually it's up to them.
And I don't know about publishing specifically, but if the name didn't give it away, I'm a Ghanaian, so I'm a very proud Pan-African. And my dad, who's a retired Africana Studies and political science professor, is based in Ghana now and is very interested in the book. So I may be able to make some connections, at least when you mention Tree, that's my language. And so, there's actually a whole group of us on the continent who talk about issues, who have ties. So I'm happy to, lend whatever relationships I have to see what we can do in the continent, because it is a problem in terms of complexion as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have one right here.
Yes, you do.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for the book.
Thank you. I love your hair. Your hair is beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. What was your favorite part of the book? Or the movie?
I like how.
It's okay. It's all right.
It's okay.
You just like the whole shebang?
She likes the whole thing.
You like all of it. Well, what's your name?
Queenie.
Queenie?
Indeed.
Well, thank you very much. Well earned. Thank you so much for your
Queen
comment.
you are.
Yes, right here in the front. Yes.
I actually have two quick questions.
Okay.
One is I have kids, so when they were little, I would just have them watch animal-based shows because I didn't want them to get the negative images. So you're on a platform now where you've brought natural hair front and center. I was interested in knowing, do you have plans to continue making films or animations that normalize black hair even more? That's the first question.
Okay.
And then also, do you see it becoming more prevalent in the industry? Second question is, for young kids, I have kids that are interested in animation and creating projects with images that look like us. What advice would you give to young people that are looking to perhaps follow in your footsteps?
All right, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the first part. It was.
Do you want to see hair love?
Continue.
Oh, continue. Yeah, for me, the thing that's most important to me with my storytelling is just normalizing us. You know what I mean? you know, natural hair, be that just us, you know, like Vassie said, resting. You know, you'd be surprised how, you know, amazing it is just to see a young black girl resting in her bed.
Not stressed out, not
You know?
fighting for something,
Right.
not marching for something.
Right, you know, just that act alone, you know, so for me, it's just, you know, really about just normalizing us, period, be that, you know, I think film is most powerful when you're kind of able to get into that slice of life of a world that you may not have that direct knowledge with or contact with. Same thing for us with other cultures as well. In terms of, what was the second part of the first question?
For young people who want
For DC.
Oh, animation. Yeah, I mean, you could probably help speak to that a little bit.
How young people can get into the industry, or how they should pursue it, you know, on their own.
What advice would, like, I have a son that's interested in animation, creating images that look like this. What advice for young people?
I certainly feel like for any artist working in any part of the field, it's important to just make the work. You know, we're very lucky that we've gotten platforms to publish our books and get, you know, our work spread around the world, but that wouldn't have gotten anywhere without the hard work that happens when no one's looking.
Right.
The drawings, the hundreds of drawings that you have to do. There's a quote I love by Walt Stanchfield, who used to be an educator with the Walt Disney Studios. He said, "We all have 10,000 bad drawings inside of us. The sooner you get them out, the better." And that just means you got to put in the work.
That's a good one.
And then I really believe that you need to be able to talk to people about the work. So. Share it, and you know, sometimes you want to keep your ideas close and keep those ones close, but you got to get the work out there and share it with other folks, because you never know who's looking at your Instagram every once in a while.
No, I mean that's the thing about Vassie that just really impressed me, because you told the story kind of on the book tour. Like, there was a point where she was literally at home and she would knock out a drawing a day and post it online, and
Was that for Black History Month? Were you for that?
Yeah, I mean, a mixture of things. So when I first got into illustration and when I decided that that's what I wanted to do, I moved home with my parents to our very small town in Virginia on the Eastern Shore. Since we're in Virginia, does anybody know where that is? You must know that we don't have great internet or anything else. So I was really just in my own, trying to create my own practice, and I was drawing every single day. I was trying to draw different types of hair. I really want to get to this place of like neutrality. Hair is neutral. It's just a thing that's on our head. So it's beautiful in every different shape and form. So I practice all kinds of things all the time. And then when Black History Month came around, I really wanted to do something a little bit different. So something somewhere in that vein of, like, I wanted to, you know, talk about why is it that we celebrate Black History Month. And when Carter G. Woodson founded Negro History Week in 1926, he wanted to celebrate the stories that have been long neglected throughout history. And I thought, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to share the stories of Black women in particular, whose stories have been doubly neglected throughout history. So I created what is now known as my Little Leader character, and I was posting a drawing a day of Black women. Unfortunately, that turned into my book series. But, you know, even if that didn't happen, even if it wasn't the Cinderella story of some success, I knew that with every single drawing, I was getting better at expressing myself, at sharing story, about getting people excited. And I've learned that what I'm interested in is sharing content with young people of color in particular. And so I've grown to understand how to hook them, how to get them to want to turn the page, get them excited about these characters. So without all of that time, I wouldn't have understood why is it that I want to be doing this. So I would recommend anyone who's interested in art or writing to just practice. You want to make a movie, just make one. It's going to be bad, but you got to make it, and you got to make another one and another one.
You can shoot it on your iPhones now. I mean, you can edit on a laptop or iPad. I mean, there's just there's access that has never existed before. You know, I think back to, you know, the time when Spike Lee was starting off. He had to edit on the reel-to-reel and go to the facility, and then you had to get the film. You know what I mean? Now
one can of film costs $60.
Right.
So we're very lucky now. It's all on our phones.
It's very more accessible. So yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to express is that it is hair. Our hair was the key way that others from everywhere, that people made us dislike ourselves. Not so much because we have always had different colors in our families. Our skin colors have been very different. But the one thing that people always try to impress on us, to make us dislike us, is to make us first dislike what is in your head, what actually grows out and what your antennas are touched with, because the wiriness in our hair, just when you think that the only other, there's only one animal on the earth that has curly follicles, and that's the sheep. So consequently, we have our follicles are curly, and that's what has been put on our heads. So that's what I think is so significant about what is happening right now, is the younger generation will not have all these isms. They will not be held back by something that has been the main key thing for us. I mean, I can remember 45 years ago when I was going to marry, my husband and I were getting married. They, my sisters, during the wedding thing, I had this great big afro. The key, when I fell asleep, I woke up, they were trying to perm my hair. And because they were embarrassed that I was going to walk down the aisle with this big afro. So that was, that was another thing. So this is just glorious for all of us to just understand that this is one thing that is going to be erased from the stigma that has been placed on the entire race of people, including some Jewish people, anyone who has that curly hair.
Right.
And I think it's a marvelous thing, especially what this act, and it's just so great what we're doing. My children, we've always been allergic to perm, and it just damaged us. So thank God, and thank you all, thank America.
Thank you, Mama. Shout out for 45 years of marriage.
Yeah, get some folks in the back. Get some folks in the back too.
see some
Y'all
right
getting left out.
Would you like about 3 more questions? And then, yes, right in the middle, right here. Where'd you see?
Yeah, that's all.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm not going to tell a hair story about my natural hair. I've been natural since 78, I think.
Oh, wow.
But I want to say what I got from the film is it honored my father. My father combed my hair. Now, I'd be squinting for about a week, when he braided it and all that, because he didn't realize how heavy his hand was. But my daddy could braid my hair, and I went to church, and it looked good. I think they thought, what's wrong with her eyes? So I really want to thank you for that, because so many times, even though I know brothers have to gain confidence, my father, 73 years old, and my father braided my hair when I was 10 and 11 and 12. And wow. It's good. So I want to thank you.
Feels great.
We have one more question. Is there anyone like in the way in the back? I feel like, okay, thank you. This man right there, listen. I can't see who she is. Hi. I can't hear you. Can you speak up?
Can you hear me now?
And stand up, please. I know. But the lights, we want to see you.
Thanks, babe. Oh, gosh. Hello.
Greetings. Hey.
Hey, friend.
So my question was for, so essentially one of my hobbies is writing. I've been writing for a really, really long time. It was something that I picked up in high school heavily when I discovered like chapter novels. And I've been creating my own, world. I like doing like the supernatural theme. I feel like that's something that we aren't really represented in very heavily, and it's something that I know a lot of us are really into, especially with like animes and otherworld. Thank you. And otherworld like type themes. It's something that I'm really interested in writing in, and I have a thing I'm currently doing, and I just wanted some advice because the story I have right now has like a lot of plot holes in it, and I know that from one author to another, you guys might have some insight on how I can help deal with my writer's block and just create a really cool story and something that I think a lot of us would be able to kind of connect with, and just be exposed more to as a community.
Copy that. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
No worries. Thank you.
So she wants to know about the writer's block, and just one second, if y'all could just turn the stage light, we can't see back there, period. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Now I can see everything. Okay, all right, writer's block and how to push through those moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think with writer's block, you can't force it, you know what I mean? Like, it has to be organic. You know, I think the best writing comes when you're inspired, you know, when you're relaxed. I would suggest, you know, obviously it's different when you're on the deadline. I mean, I think that comes after with, you know, years and years of practice. But, you know, if you're dealing with block, I would just walk away, you know, start working on something else. And then when you come back to it, you know, it'll be fresh again and you'll be able to look at it with new eyes. That's what I do.
And my advice to people with writer's block is to find inspiration in the world, like a museum, like we're sitting in, books, parks, things like that. And also it may be helpful, depending on where you are in the process, I advise people to do a table read, get a group of friends together and read. And that really inspires writers when they get feedback and ideas. So.
Yeah.
And then I can say if you want to get into the publishing industry, depending upon like which age group you're writing for, you should definitely be reading what books are out there. What are the top sellers? Do your research on the market. You know, they kind of say that some of us are plotters and some of us are pantsers. Like you write by the seat of your pants, or some of us plot it all out. Try switching it up a little bit. And also like one thing that works for me, and not too many people are super open to this, but as an artist, I like to spend time drawing my characters and thinking about the things that you may never see in the book. One thing like with Zuri, like as an illustrator, I spend a lot of time with the character. You know, I worked on this book by Lupita Nyong'o called Sulwe, and I was asking, you know, I'm sitting there for hours and hours drawing all the things that she has tucked under her bed and what's coming out of this drawer and what's over here. And so I was asking some questions like, you know, what does Sulwe like to do in her free time? Maybe she likes to draw, do you think she writes? And so these were questions I was talking to with Lupita about because they help build the character. And in the end, no one may ever know that, but now I understand that character a little bit more. And so that'll help you to figure out your character's choices. When they get to this crossroads, which way are they gonna go? Are they more internal or external in these moments? So, you know, you really have to live in the world. And when you get tired of that world, you step out for a minute and you go for a walk and you get away from your desk. And then you just gotta come back to it.
Yeah.
It's just one word at a time, honestly.
Yeah.
We're gonna take two last questions.
Wait. Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Make sure that it's a question, though, not statements.
Yeah.
We only got two more questions, so make sure they're questions.
So we have a little girl, and then also
Let's get this
guy. Yeah, there we go.
All right,
Yeah.
our next question is with Zuri.
Hold on one quick second.
Hold on
Okay.
one
There's one right back here.
Welcome.
Okay, she just wanted to say thank you for picking the name Zuri because that's her name.
Oh,
And then she got nervous to say.
Thank you.
All right.
That guy.
And then the last question.
Polo.
First of
Oh,
all,
wow. You don't need a mic.
first of all, thank you so much for highlighting the black male in this book.
That's right.
So to stick to your request, my question is, was it intentional to have the male keep his masculine during the book storytelling? Like, I know sometimes in this generation, we can't make the connection of a male doing the female's head. It's frowned upon, or it's judged. I love how in the book it just kind of keeps his innocence and it keeps his masculinity in the book. So I just wanted to know, was that intentional, or did it just kind of all come together that way?
You know, I think the main lesson with Harold. Yeah.
I said everything's intentional.
Yeah, everything is intentional.
Which, if it isn't, I think you need to reassess what you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it though, at the end of the day, like the book and the short film is about love. It's about when you have somebody who depends on you, they ask you to do something that you don't know how to do, you're either going to say no, or if you truly love them, you're going to try to figure it out, and I think this father, I think he just represents, I think, all families, oftentimes you're going to be tasked with things that you may not know how to do, you may be a little afraid to do, and it may be new waters or new territory, but you're going to step up, you're going to figure it out, and it may not be great the first time, but with practice, you're going to keep going, and we just really wanted to represent for the Black fathers, The thing that's interesting is when you look at mainstream media, Black fathers are non-existent, always depicted as not there, deadbeats, et cetera, and in our research of doing this project, studies have literally shown that Black men are amongst the most involved in their kids' lives. But when you look at, mainstream media, you don't see that. And so, it was just really important to show, a Black father really being present in his kids' lives, a nuclear family. That's why we wanted that moment even at the end of the short film where, they're all together and mom's hair is growing back and everything. Just a positive story of a Black family, and we're one where the dad is kind of at the center of it initially, and they all come together at the end. So, yeah.
Thank you. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. These events are possible because you all respond so well to them. You all give us feedback. You all tell us what you like. We will be sending a survey to you. Please, 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 and I'll say it again, please, please. Respond, because it makes it easier for us to do our job, and it makes it easier to say what is wanted if we can hear from you. And I think this is what is wanted. So, is this what, am I wrong? I could be wrong. No? Okay. Just checking. And with some takeaways also, sign the petition. We've got some books that need to be translated. So find your way to make these things happen that we've talked about, and don't just leave it here. Art is not meant to be left in museums. Take it with you, take it with you, take it with you. So some logistics. I'm going to ask everyone to please, as fast as you can, to get downstairs. We have some food, we have some drinks. I know the temptation is going to be to take some pictures. However, we've got to get everyone downstairs. We've got to take some pictures so I can get some more money to be able to get some more programming. We got to get our thing up here, and they've got to get there. We got to have our chance to be together. So we'll meet everyone downstairs. You're going to be signing books. Both of you all be signing books, right?
We'll meet all you guys.
And we will meet you downstairs. Thank you all. Give yourselves a hand. You all did a great job. Thank you.